The way Richard Petty and Darrell Waltrip did have good starts, and in the early part of this race, yeah, just what everybody thought was going to happen. Bill Elliott was leading. Well, Elliott dropped back a little bit. There was some shuffling going on up front. Those two men, Neil Bonnet on the right, Buddy Baker on the left, went at it up front for a few laps. And then this horrifying-looking accident. Phil Barkdahl from the Midwest in the Helen Ray Special, getting upside down in the tri-oval, almost going in its stands, as a matter of fact, at one point. Some anxious moments, and then Phil climbs out, waved to the crowd. As a matter of fact, he felt so good, he even helped pick up some of the debris just a few minutes later. Yellow flag, no pit stops, too early in the race. Back to action. You can see that Darrell Waltrip, from starting back around 10th or so, has moved up to the front. He now becomes a factor. Baker's holding the lead, but it's only temporary. This incident in turns 3 and 4. That is Jim Sauter and A.J. Foyt. Along comes Tommy Ellis and Greg Sachs. That is Ellis upside down. He flipped a couple of times. Nobody was injured in this. There's Greg Sachs coming into the pits. By the way, Ellis got on his roof. Now, everybody came in for a routine pit stop, right? Look at that guy going out. Who is that? That's Ken Schrader. Meanwhile, everybody else is doing what everybody else normally does during a pit stop. They're changing tires. But Junie Dunleavy and crew decided we're not going to change tires. Schrader came out in front. At this point, he's got the older set of tires. Elliott moves to the inside. Everybody thinks, now here comes Elliott. But that's not the way it's happening. He puts back the challenge of Elliott at that point. Here they come down for the checkered flag. Watch for the finish line stripe coming up. Elliott looks like, again, he has it, but no. It's Kenny Schrader, and Kenny Schrader picks up the first win ever in a 125 qualifier, his first NASCAR win. You see Elliott second, Darrell Waltrip a very consistent third, Buddy Baker fourth, and Rick Wilson finished fifth. That was no surprise. He, too, has had a very good offseason.
The second Twin 125 wasn't quite as exciting as the first, but it was a very good race for our friend and colleague Benny Parsons. He won that second 125. It started with the Allisons on the front row. Davey in the pole and Bobby to the outside. Jeff Bodine led early. Bobby was second and Davey Allison running in third position. In the tri-oval here, Benny Parsons is beginning to move up in that red Folgers car. He's battling here for sixth position. Bobby Allison gets a little wide in turn number 3, and Davey moves alongside to pass him. It was a bad afternoon for Rusty Wallace. He broke the transmission in the car and had to retire from competition. Benny Parsons once again here in turn number 3, moving from third to first, passing Allison and Bodine. Davey Allison wants to be heard from on the inside of turn number 1. He gets low on the track, almost loses the car. The car sideways on him, but he saves it. He does, however, lose several positions. Benny here on the last lap goes high, passing Blackie Wangren. Blackie loses control, slides down the track, then slides up the banking, touches the wall, comes back down the track, but everybody misses him. No other car is involved. Here is Benny coming through the tri-oval and taking the checkered flag on his way to victory. And in victory lane, it's a big hug for his crew chief, Harry Hyde. The top 5 finishers, Benny Parsons, Bobby Allison, Jeff Bodine, Sterling Marlin, and Harry Gant. And those are the reports on the Twin 125s. Ford wins both races. I'm sorry. Ford wins the first one. Chevy wins the second.
Bill Elliott becomes the first pole winner, obviously, of this year. And they, of course, all compete in the Busch Clash. That was held last weekend. A guy who's on stage with us tonight, Darrell Waltrip, he had a thrilling day, really, over the weekend in that Busch Clash. But with a report on that race, here is Mark Allen.
Bill Elliott drew the pole for the 20-lap dash, which was exactly the one spot the other 9 drivers did not want to see him and his restyled Ford Thunderbird. Maybe that explains why Terry Labonte got a little overeager after the start and triggered a multi-car tangle, which immediately put Ricky Rudd out of action. Labonte's wounded Chevy received frantic attention, but was beyond hope. Making his debut in Junior Johnson's car an inauspicious one, he retired after just 1 lap. Darrell Waltrip's new number 17 Tide Ride was the last car Awesome Bill passed, en route to his first Busch Clash win in 4 appearances. One other note, 3 times the Clash winner has gone on to win the national championship. From Daytona Speedway's Victory Lane, this is Mark Allen reporting.
Well, there was some bad weather in the Daytona Beach area last week, and qualifying was supposed to be held last Saturday, but it was rained out, so qualifying was held then on Monday, the race for the pole. But remember, only the first 2 starting positions determined in that race for the pole. And here is Davey Allison. It was a bit of a surprise, although he had turned in the fastest practice lap at Daytona earlier in the month. But Davey is on the track right now for his 1 lap of qualifying.
Bob, what is substantiated is those practice speeds, those astronomical practice speeds that Allison had turned in not only here, but also Talladega. He is for real.
And there you see him on the pole for a while, but here comes Bill Elliott to take the green flag and begin his qualifying attempt. Bill did a lot of testing down in Talladega this winter, and he turned in a 214-mile-an-hour lap. And he wound up, as you know, of course, on the pole for this year's Daytona 500. And the row assignments indicate that Elliott and Allison are on row 1. Ken Schrader and Benny Parsons, by virtue of their wins today, on the second row. In row number 3, it's Darrell Waltrip and Bobby Allison. Row number 4, Buddy Baker and Jeff Bodine.
Row number 5, Rick Wilson and Sterling Marlin taking over the Piedmont car. Row number 5, King Richard Petty and Harry Gant coming back hopefully after a kind of a subpar year. The 7th row, Earnhardt and Labonte. 8th row is Neil Bonnet and Dave Marcus. Bonnet had a good performance for a while in his qualifier. Ronnie Bouchard in House Ellington's car, then Mike Waltrip, Bill Parsons, and then Kyle Petty. They comprise the first 20 starters.
Blackie Wangren was the individual who had the crash
Whatever you
in
say.
the first 125-mile qualifier. Well, we'll have more review of the major motorsports events from the past week, and Darrell Waltrip will join us in just a moment as we're live from the Ocean Center in Daytona Beach.
Speedweek is brought to you by B.F. Goodrich TA Radios. We make your car perform. By Quaker State Motor Oil. When car-carrying people reach for the best, they reach for Quaker State Motor Oil. And by Dodge, a performance revolution, an American revolution.
Well, in just a few minutes, you'll have a chance to go to your telephones to help you out. We're going to give you those numbers. The number across America is 1-800-225-ESPN. 1-800-225-ESPN. Here in the state of Florida, it's a long-distance call, 1-904-255-7950. 1-904-255-7950. Well, last week there was some action last weekend, some action at Daytona. The Arca race, always one of the most exciting races down here during Speed Weeks, and we have a report on that race for you right now.
The Arca 200 has a tradition of providing plenty of excitement, and the 24th edition last Sunday was no exception. The race was only 31 laps old when the action began. Jim Ingalls gets low in turn number 4, slides up the banking and into the wall. When he bounces back into traffic, he's hit by Howard Mark in number 31 and Scott Stovall. Then Rick Jeffrey delivers a crushing blow to Mark as he was trying to weave his way through the wreck. When the smoke cleared, 6 cars were totally demolished. 2 drivers were taken to a local hospital, but miraculously none was seriously injured. Don Marmer slid to the second turn wall, touched it, but is missed by all of the oncoming traffic. But it's a link. Marmer's car gets stuck in the infield mud. The next accident came on lap number 42. Gary Hooper loses it in turn number 4. His car gets upside down a la Ricky Rudd a few years ago. It hits the inside wall, slides across pit road, and finally comes to rest in the tri-oval infield. Newfer also escaped serious injury. The final caution of the day came only 10 laps from the finish. David Sosby manages to keep the car away from the wall as he slides through turn number 4. But that caution bunched up the cars and set up a dash to the finish. Ralph Jones won the 8-lap sprint under green, finishing just ahead of pole sitter Bill Venturini. And we might mention that winning car, if it looks familiar, is an old Bill Elliott car. An old...
As many of the Arca cars are, former NASCAR machines.
Well, this guy sitting to my left you might recognize. This is Darrell Waltrip, who had a very fine performance in the Twin 125s earlier today. What about it, Darrell? Were you pleased with your performance?
I was real happy with the car. You know, had a lot of problem with it on Sunday in the Busch Clash, and the thing was running sideways, and had the wrong kind of springs in it. And I would be the first to admit that, but it's fixed now, and it's running a whole lot better. And the car handled well around the bottom, and look forward to the race on Sunday now.
You know, I think one of the things we got to talk about, we saw 2 very terrible crashes in the races today. There were several crashes in that Arca race. Is there something out there that's causing, that seems like there's a problem in turn number 4? There has been in previous years. What is it?
You know, right now, I think the thing that may be causing us a problem is everybody's trying to run the racetrack so low. Today, to see Benny kind of rim ride a little bit. Made me feel good because I kind of like to run up there myself. But the fast way around this racetrack now is right around the very, very bottom of it. And therefore, you've got the car bound up tremendously. You've got to turn down hard. So when you got the car in that kind of bind, if anything happens, a little bump or you lose a little control, you don't have any time to gather it up because you're down there so tight. I think the cars are starting backwards up the racetrack, and the banking, possibly the lift from the banking, is making them get upside down or turn over. It's not the car. I feel better about the cars than I ever have. Even though they're going faster, they handle better than they ever have. They feel better than they ever have. It's just a racing phenomena.
Let's hope that we have had all of the accidents we're going to have, and there are none in the Daytona 500 coming up on Sunday. Well, we're going to open up the phone lines for you in just a moment. You'll be able to ask Darrell Waltrip just about anything you'd like to do in his racing career. That when we come back to the Ocean Center in Daytona Beach.